Hello and welcome to the Navigate Academy. This is Module 17, Communication Principles. We're sponsored today by D-Tools, and it's a tool that really helps people communicate, so it's an appropriate sponsor. Today we've got Chuck Wilson, Executive Director of NSCA, the National Systems Contractor Association. It's the leading not-for-profit association representing the commercial electronic systems industry. At the helm of NSCA, much of Chuck's time is spent communicating and assisting systems contractors with the challenges of today's business environment. He often gives lectures and presentations at key industry events and has been published in numerous leading trade journals. Prior to joining NSCA, Chuck was a partner at Communications Engineering Company, a successful low voltage electronics contracting company. Chuck, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, I picked you because you're the face and voice of NSCA, been for a while, and when you speak, members and many others in this industry and outside of the industry really listen. What's your secret to really sharing your passion for the industry?
Well, I hope they listen. It seems like they do. I think, to me, I think the thing is I'm probably more like them. I'm a former integrator. I lived it. I grew up in it, started by pulling wire and mounting devices and doing all those kind of things, worked my way through technical design, sales, management, that whole thing. So I think it brings with it a certain level of authenticity, maybe, or it is what it is kind of thing. But, having walked in their shoes, I think is the big deal, where I understand, when I got started, we had 7 employees. The company now has 300, so it's like you've seen all of the different growth stages and all of that. So I think it's easy for me to relate no matter what the size business that they have.
Got it. And when you communicate, and like effective communication, which I'd say you're an example of, people always know how best to convey the message. What do you think about when you're talking to different audiences? Because I think you really talk with audiences, not at or to audiences.
Well, first of all, and especially lately, this last year, Brad, it's been all about showing empathy and, trying to put yourself in their place if they're struggling or realizing that things there's a lot of pressure on them, pressure at home, pressure at work. You don't know how badly some people are struggling even. So I just try to be an empathetic listener, try to gain perspective of where they're coming from by listening before I really come out and say stuff, or at least I try. I don't always do it well, but at least I try to be an active listener to them and show that empathy and the compassion that might be required in that particular situation. So I try to read them real carefully before I blurt something out, I guess.
Got it. And with the pandemic, I mean, it's definitely changed how we communicate, but I think you had a very successful business and leadership conference, so congratulations on that. What went behind the communications plan to really make that as successful as it was?
Well, what's interesting about that is how much work goes into it. I think it's kind of strange that you think about a 2-day event, but it's about a 2-year planning cycle for each event. We've already got many presenters, many topics lined up for 2022 already. So with that, what happens is we don't go out and just randomly pick, like, this guy wrote a great book and he's a great speaker, or she's a great had a great novel, or had anything that was something like that. We don't start with the person, we start with really the content, and we focus on 6 core elements of what an integrator is struggling with. So every year when we get together with our NSCA board of directors, we capture from them and through our research, what are the primary challenges people are having, the opportunities, where they struggle with growth or where they're finding growth. And from that, we map out 6 different, we call them swim lanes, 6 different categories of what we need to focus on, be it talent management, accountability, alignment, whatever they might be, that are crucial to business success. And then what we do is we step back and we put that whole thing together and we say, okay, who are the top 3 presenters in the world, whether they've written a book on the subject or Harvard Business Review or wherever they came from? What are the top 3 speakers in the world on that subject? And then we go and try to find those 3 and then fit them into the schedule and everything. Dr. Joseph, who did our talk, on the whole Ignite 2.0 DEI concept,
Right.
We've been trying to get him there for 4 years now. So
Okay.
there's people that have been on our list for a long time, but his whole talk, and he's a wonderful communicator. His whole talk was about, just having the confidence, building up confidence in yourself in order to, know that you have the ability to communicate with people, make eye contact with people, listen to people, and to know that you can have a voice in different types of conversations. And so we just learned a ton from the business conference over the years from some of the great people that are out there.
Well, and leading into that, and as you said, confidence. I mean, studies show that public speaking, 75% of the population just fears it, and yet you do it, I'll say, masterfully. What tips can you share? And again, you already brought up confidence, but what other things can you share, especially for the middle managers and next generation leaders who are really learning how to find their voice?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm still almost terrified of it. So I always look at the people, the men and women we've had speak at BLC before or at any of our conferences, and I so admired them. I so wish that I could get up there without being a nervous wreck and be able to articulate the thoughts that I have. So early on, what would happen to me is I'd get up there with this, I'd practice, I'd rehearse, I'd do everything. I'd get up there behind the podium and I'd start talking, and I'd have no idea if I talked about the things that I had rehearsed, and it just, to me, it just took practice over and over and over again to do that and to be okay with failing and trying again. And, I had some, I don't know, in the early days at BLC, I probably said the craziest stuff and stupid stuff and probably sweating and nervous and turning red and everything else that you could possibly do in front of a group of people. And just over time, and it took me forever, but over time, I got incrementally better at it, I guess. And that's what you got to do, and I tell you what, Brad, what's so interesting right now is anybody that's coming into our industry, what we've learned through Ignite and other things is having effective presentation skills makes a ton of difference in a person's
Absolutely.
career. It's huge for people.
Well, and you brought up listening, and especially, as executive director of NSCA, I mean, you listen a lot. What did you do to kind of hone your listening skills to really, pay it? Empathy, you use that word also. So
Yeah. The big thing is and it's in our core value statement. We have this document that everybody that works at NSCA, we go through this orientation, and it's just called Who We Are and How We Do Things. That's all it is, real simple. And interestingly, I wrote it 24 years ago when the first day on my job here at NSCA, I wrote down what things I learned from my former career, what things I admired about other people, the way they do things. And I wrote this document that says, okay, here's how we're going to do things at NSCA. And it was I was trying to drive the culture that way, right?
right, exactly. Yep.
So one of the very first things on there says that, because we take a ton of calls, is that it says we will never rush a call that unless we made it. So what that means is that if somebody calls us, we'll take all the time they need to explain their situation, to talk about, many times they're talking about their family, their health, their business, something that happened or whatever. And we never ever rush those calls. We let people talk all the way through. We are late for staff meetings sometimes because of it or whatever, but that's okay. The only calls we rush are the ones we make. So we get right to the point when we're the one that interrupted the person on the other end. So it's
Right.
kind of an idea of how to how to be respectful of a person's time, because they called us, they picked up the phone and called us because they had an issue or a problem or something. So we're going to listen as long as it takes to understand really what it is.
Well, and that's that respect, but also building that relationship, that rapport, and then inviting, they feel that you trust them, and
Yeah,
vice versa. So
yeah.
that's key.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is um, we spend countless hours with our team here, and we do this with our board of directors actually, is where we talk about the core values and how we live them. So the idea with NSCA is to be able to say that we are your voice. You know, we take that seriously. It's like if we're the voice of a system integrator, and 1,000 of them out there, you know, if we're their voice, we take it really, really seriously. We you know, it's like an honor, a badge we wear of honor that says if people are going to allow us to be their voice, then we have to speak with authority. We have to be clear about what we're saying. We have to be assertive at many times. Other times we have to be just great listeners and empathetic about what the issue is. But we take that brand, if you will, or that brand promise that's up there, and we say, all right, here is how we're going to live our core values today. And
Right.
it has really helped us with that.
Well, and that's a lesson that really every company can abide by and really hone, especially from tech on up, because everybody needs to really start growing their people, especially in this day and age with all the different communication vehicles. It's like live your culture.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Live your culture, your core values, you know, how to be a trusted advisor. You know, one of the things that I think you can help us, our industry, with too, is that we, as you know, we struggle a lot of times when we hire technical people. They go to tech schools and they go to different colleges where they maybe didn't have the soft skills that they need as a technology professional. What we're trying to do is to drive that level of communications, that improved communication skills down to our frontline people. So when they're face to face with the client, that they're saying the right thing, that they understand the culture of the organization,
Exactly.
the core values. They understand, you know, what the owner or their manager would say if they were in that customer facing situation. But for some reason, the last maybe 5 or 10 years, we've seen that drop off a little bit. We've seen people with awesome IT and technical skills, but their soft skills were not really developed the way that we need them to be with what we do today. So there's so many situations where you're in front of a customer and, you know, maybe it's a generational thing, but if we are used to asynchronous communications through text or whatever, when we're face to face, eyeball to eyeball with a customer who says, why isn't this done right? Why doesn't this work or whatever, is we still have to have those people understand how to behave in that situation, because what we're discovering is those people are the last impression that they have of our organizations, right? So that's their lasting impression. And if it wasn't good, why are they going to ask us to come back and do the next project or whatever?
Exactly.
So we could all use help with that if you can work on that.
I'd love to. I always tell people, you know, your techs are your brand. And so, because that's the impression people are with.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And again, we always wrap up every interview with really looking at what business book you're reading and what are you learning from it?
Oh, you know me, I've got a million of them over there. So I don't know. You know, I was just looking at the Michael Canig book. I don't know if you heard him at BLC, but he was talking about ruthless consistency. So I've been reading that, and I'm thinking, man, you know, because you and I talk about workflows and processes, and process improvements and handoffs from department to department, and where are the constraints and all that. But if we can somehow embed consistency to the level that Michael is talking about in his book, I think that would be fantastic. So I'm kind of studying up on that. As you know, I pick up all the Jim Collins stuff and reread that over and over again.
He's in our library too. There's what I just call the classics.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, great. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts, your insights, again, listening and communicating with us. Appreciate it, and we hope to see you soon. And again, we just enjoy always talking to you, Chuck.
Yeah, in person. Our next event will be in person, right?
There we go.
All right.
Absolutely. Take care.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. See ya.
You bet.